Hello there, welcome to this edition of Global Business Africa on the 25th of July 2014. I'm Ramanyang in the Kenyan capital, Nairobi. We've got plenty of content coming your way, all the way from Ethiopia to Nairobi, South Africa and Egypt. You name it, we've got it. Here's what's coming up. South Africa's government considers new laws perhaps to clip labour unions' wings. Uganda's government misses its revenue target as donors turn the other way. And we'll be sampling an Ethiopian honey wine that's rapidly gaining popularity. Let's start tonight in a country that we rarely cover here on Global Business, Tanzania. Its central bank has taken over the management of a bank accused by the US government of money laundering. Now, that decision comes after the Central Bank of Cyprus placed two branches of FBME Bank under its control, following a report from the US Treasury's Financial Crimes Enforcement Network accusing the bank of deliberately helping clients evade sanctions and launder illicit gains. Now, the Bank of Tanzania said it had taken control of FBME Bank, formerly the first bank of the Middle East, due to the potential effect of the Cypriot move on Tanzania's own banking system. Now, it said FBME's 4 branches in the East African country would remain open for business. The family-owned FBME Bank has denied the American accusations. It has accused the Cypriot central bank of a hostile takeover, and it says its lawyers are in touch with American authorities. Now, with increasingly hostile labour relations making all the headlines in South Africa, that country's labour laws are in urgent need of reform, and now more than ever. After AMCU's 5-month-long strike effectively pushed the economy into a first-quarter contraction, South Africa's government is now reconsidering its handling of organised labour and the laws that govern the operations. As Angelo Coppola reports, however, Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa's intent to revisit labour laws has ruffled quite a few union feathers.
The noises made by the South African government are not new. Most recently, Department of Mineral Resources Minister Ramahlodi suggested that some strike-breaking mechanisms were needed, and it appears that the Deputy President's comments echo the same sentiments. However, the unions are not that excited about those comments.
I think we must warn government that the current limitation on the right to strike are a product of struggle in this country. To be blunt, this Labour Relations Act that we have was not given to workers by silver platter. It is a product of stairways, some of them illegally.
But not all unionists agree. It appears that some unions may be circumventing certain aspects of the current labour legislation, specifically when it comes to balloting.
The Deputy President call for a strike ballot is quite a funny kind of call. Because the fact of the matter is, at this stage, the Labour Relations Act obliged trade unions to have a section in their constitutions that will force them to have a strike ballot.
On the other hand, economists welcomed the Deputy President's comments and remarks.
Breath of fresh air. Here is the voice of business from a parliamentarian, from a politician. Wow, that does say perhaps government has got a voice from ours, the business side, from looking at the economy first and foremost, considering that and saying that we have to change.
The question remains whether the Deputy President has the political power to take those comments and change the labour legislation. There's no question that something has to change, though, because if it doesn't, economic growth in this country won't happen. I'm Angelo Coppola for CCTV in Pretoria.
Now, still in South Africa, Lonmin, the third largest producer of platinum in that country, aims to get production levels up to about 80% of normal levels by September, even as it recovers from a 5-month-long strike that essentially savaged earnings. The longest and costliest strike in South Africa's history ended a month ago, and it cost Lonmin over $300 million in lost production, security costs and forfeited contracts. Now, Lonmin, along with her larger rivals, Anglo American Platinum and Impala Platinum, all signed a 3-year wage agreement in June with the Association of Mine Workers and Construction Union. Lonmin forecast 2014 output at roughly 340,000 ounces. That's less than half of what it produced in 2013. Let's expand this conversation and bring in CCTV's Angelo Coppola. He's live in Johannesburg. Kelly Lemon joins us as well from London. Angelo, let's start with you. Some fairly dreary numbers, frankly, coming out of Lonmin's briefing earlier today, forecasting 2014 output to be about 54% lower. Walk us through the key numbers as far as production is concerned.
Well, Raman, as you put it just now, the company's actually lost around 192,700 platinum saleable ounces, as they put it. And there's a 400,000 ounce loss, which is going to cost around $600 million. Now, at the moment, production is sitting at around 30%. They're hoping to be at around 80% normal production by the end of their financial year 2014, and only in the first quarter of 2015 do they plan to be at steady state production. So those numbers are not good, and it's going to be a really tough year for shareholders of Lonmin shares, Raman.
Indeed. Kelly, has AMCO's strike, in the view of analysts and investors, done irreparable damage to Lonmin, or is this something that, given time, it can recover from?
Well, in its quarterly production report, the miners said the longest strike in South Africa's history has costed $322 million already in lost production, security costs and forfeited contracts, as you say. But on top of that lost production, at current spot prices, could be as much as $600 million. But then you look at the PR damage this has done and how concerned investors are about the situation on the ground, and that could be a much longer term cost for the company.
Indeed. Angelo, let's look at the future here. Pandora, the joint venture mine, why is it an ideal acquisition for Lonmin?
Well, it's ideal because it's been a joint venture between themselves and Amplats, and there are two other smaller shareholders. So the people at Lonmin understand the mine, they understand the staff, and they understand the operations. And quite frankly, it makes sense. What you're going to probably find now is they're going to haggle over the price. Raman?
Indeed. Kelly, according to analysts on your end, how much working capital does Lonmin actually need to raise as it ramps up production over the next couple of months?
Well, the miner is reassuring investors about its finances as we speak. According to the Financial Times, Lonmin says it will not need to raise more funds as it ramps up production, although the company says it has no net cash on its balance sheet at the end of its Q3 in June. So instead it's using its banking facilities for liquidity in the next few months.
Indeed. Final question to you, Angelo, on the subject that you actually did raise. Between the damage done to its balance sheet by AMCO's strike and the need to raise more working capital, in a briefing as mentioned by the CEO, Ben Magara, how much does Lonmin really need to buy the 42.5% of the joint venture in Pandora that Amplats currently owns?
Well, when I spoke to Amplats, I asked them that particular question, what the carrying value was of the actual interest of that 42%. And they reckon it's around 349 million rand, which is around $34 million. But I think the price is going to become an issue when you look at the life of mine here. In this case, the mineral resource, exclusive of ore reserves, is around 24.9 million 4E ounces and 2.3 million 4E ounces in terms of its ore reserve. So the haggling is probably going to start now because we don't know how much value Amplats are going to put on that forward-looking amount of ore value that's underground, Raman.
Indeed, and of course the assumption being that they can reliably get it out of the ground and sell it off at a profit. We'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much for that. That's Angelo Coppola in Johannesburg and Kelly Lemon live in London. Let's take it to East Africa. Uganda's tax collection body has registered a revenue shortfall amounting to over $180 million in its collection for the 2013-2014 fiscal year, which ended last month. Officials at the Uganda Revenue Authority attribute the shortfall to poor performance in the banking sector, low profitability of corporate taxpayers and the winding down of the exploration phase in the country's emerging oil and gas sector. Here's Michael Beleke with more.
Uganda's tax body has collected revenue amounting to $3 billion as opposed to the projected $3.2 billion, representing a shortfall of more than $189 million. The Revenue Authority attributes the deficit to the poor performance of corporation taxes and local value-added tax. The banking sector suffered bad debts and tax revenues were less profitable due to a winding down of oil and gas exploration.
The oil companies are moving from the exploration stage to the production stage. And as they move from one stage to another, the kind of services they require are different. So the services that were required at exploration have been scaled down because the companies are moving into a new phase.
However, the tax body says it has posted a 12% growth compared to last year's collections, which amounted to $2.7 billion. The tax body says new reforms in revenue collection systems, like automation of revenue processes, such as the introduction of the e-tax, electronic cargo tracking systems, and one-stop border posts, have greatly improved efficiency and doing business.
We have seen an increase in volumes with the same road, with the same trucks, with the same companies. So that's the importance of efficiency. How can we be more efficient, use the same resources to earn more even before we invest?
The boost in revenue collections has also been attributed to a successful registration of close to 25,000 new taxpayers.
We need a law to ensure that Ugandans who are venturing into business actually register these businesses, whether you're in insurance, manufacturing, small agribusiness, or whatever. We need to know where you are, what you are doing, how many people you're employing, whether you're exporting, how much are you exporting, value addition, how much are you progressing.
In the new fiscal year, Uganda's tax body is planning a massive tax sensitization campaign, a rollout of the single customs territory for all dry cargo, and implement automated valuation controls to achieve the 2014-2015 revenue target of $3.6 billion. Michael Baleke, CCTV, Kampala.
Now, early on Friday, Kenya's president formally relaunched the country's National Chamber of Commerce and Industry. It's a body that's recovering from years of mismanagement and leadership wrangles. President Kenyatta reached out to the private sector lobby to develop programs that he says will help the country create more jobs, especially for younger Kenyans. Kenya's government, by law, has reserved 30% of state procurement contracts for young persons, women and people with disabilities.
For my government is fully committed to not only maintaining Kenya's welcoming business environment, but also to greatly improving that environment. We face a number of challenges as a country: poverty, youth unemployment, inequality, amongst many other problems that we have. And I strongly believe that these cannot be resolved without the energy and enterprise of the private sector.
Quick run through the equity markets here for you. They're all broadly closed in the red. In Nigeria, the JSE All Share down relatively lower, down 0.05%. The NSE 20 in the Kenyan capital also down by about a tenth or so. Not exactly the broad story, however. There were some standouts. Take the case, for example, of African Barrick Gold. Its CEO says the company is more or less on course to save $185 million. And that, of course, is the savings target for the end of the year by December. First half net profit was up to $40.8 million. Global business continues shortly. When we come back, Somalia gets a formal claim for its territory in the sea. We'll have the details from Mogadishu next. Africa is on the move. It's home to 7 of the world's 10 fastest growing economies.
From small businesses to large-scale enterprises, hear directly from entrepreneurs behind the story. It's about putting you in the picture so you know where Africa fits in the global context.
Global Business, weekdays at this time on CCTV Africa.
The rebasing of Nigeria's GDP has been a long time in coming.
The information provides us much more scope to know what the structure of the economy is.
Welcome back. You're watching Global Business Africa from the Kenyan capital, Nairobi. Now, Somalia has one of the longest coastlines in Africa, roughly some 3,000 plus kilometers long. Her maritime assets, however, especially those inside the ocean, have been of very little use to the country. Until recently, Somalia virtually had no rights to explore the waters up to about 24 so nautical miles from her shores. As CCTV's Mohammed Himogi now reports on what's hot tonight, however, that isn't the case anymore.
Somalia has now secured its maritime resources. It has registered its waters and maritime borders with the United Nations Convention on Law of the Sea. That involves 200 nautical miles of exclusive economic zone, which gives the country special rights over the exploration and use of marine resources, including energy production and generating power from water and wind.
Last week, Somalia registered 200 nautical miles, which became our exclusive economic zone. We've done the necessary registration with the UN Convention on Law of the Sea, we forwarded our maritime borders, and we further registered 350 nautical miles continental shelf.
So what prompted the haste to register Somalia's territorial sea? Illegal fishing activities by foreign trawlers who have allegedly depleted the country's fish stock is just one reason.
In the recent past, we've witnessed wastes were dumped in our waters. Foreign fishermen engaged in illegal fishing within our shores, and when we asked for protection from these, we were told we only had 24 nautical miles as our recognized waters. Anything beyond was international waters.
Now the country enjoys both its exclusive economic zone and a further 350 nautical miles of continental shelf, the stretch of the seabed adjacent to its shores. The 200 nautical miles territorial sea confers Somalia full sovereignty over its waters, and as such the Somali government says it has for the first time secured its maritime borders, but also adds should there be any parties with concerns regarding such borders, then they should take such grievances to the United Nations Convention on Law of the Sea. Somalia's coastline is a source of over 400 different species of fish. In a country where statistics show more than half the population is unemployed, fishing is a lifeline. So these fishermen can now delve further into the sea. Mohammed Himogi, CCTV, Mogadishu.
Should be interesting to see how that works out, given the fact that Kenya and Somalia have had a running dispute over the maritime border for the last couple of years. Now then, on to matters of the global economic recovery. As an indicator of just how weak that remains, the IMF has trimmed its 2014 growth forecast in its latest edition of its World Economic Outlook report. Now, the lender cites the risk of stagnation in most developed economies among the reasons for the downgrade, and it's calling for a lot more structural reform if growth is to be boosted. Yang Chengxi has more.
The IMF is now forecasting the global economy will expand 3.4% this year, 0.3% below what it predicted in April. However, the IMF maintained its growth forecast for next year at 4%. The agency warned that only some of the factors leading to this lowered forecast were temporary, and that richer nations in particular face the risk of economic stagnation. Moreover, the IMF says geopolitical risks from upheaval in the Middle East and Ukraine could further dent growth.
What does this reflect? For the moment, it reflects a deterioration of business confidence. There is nearly a freeze in investment decisions by domestic investors. There is a near freeze in terms of FDI. There are large capital outflows. All this, I think, is easily explained by the geopolitical uncertainty which affects Russia at this point.
Blanchard urges countries to do more to boost growth through structural reforms. The IMF's chief economist also cited investments in infrastructure as a growth driver, especially in China.
In the recent months, we have seen an increase in credit flows, we have seen an increase in infrastructure investment, so the government is taking measures to partly offset the effect of a decrease in housing. The result is that our forecast for China is more or less the same as it was in April, around 7.5%. So we do not see a major decrease in growth in China.
The IMF's outlook sees bright spots in the global economy, including growth pickups in Japan, Germany, Spain, and the United Kingdom. But those were overshadowed by weak growth in the United States in the first half of the year and a slowdown in domestic demand in China. Yang Chengxi, CCTV.
Now, let's talk about commodities, specifically everyone's favorite metal, gold, down about 28%, give or take. The whole of last year, it posted rather brief recovery after dropping about 1% in trading yesterday. It was up 0.4% today, about 12.97, give or take a troy ounce. Cocoa, of course, still on quite a strong run. The 3-year high was hit on July the 24th. Still, essentially, just heading higher and higher and higher, and we're not seeing any slowdown given the fact that retailers have actually raised their prices as well. When we come back, we'll be looking at an industrial chemist who's causing ripples in Ethiopia with his brand of honey wine. Welcome back to the program. You're watching Global Business Africa. Now, you're probably familiar with Ethiopia for its coffee. The country, after all, does meet about 3% of global supply. However, if those in the country's wine industry have anything to say about it, you might know Ethiopia for a different reason. It's wine as well. Gemechu Simachu made the transition from being an industrial chemist right into an entrepreneur who creates and sells tej. It's a honey wine unique to the East African country and her neighbors.
The sweet smell of success smells a lot like alcohol to Gemechu Simachu. His industrial chemist supplies supermarkets with tej, a honey wine unique to Ethiopia and neighboring Eritrea.
What I was inspiring is that if I make this product with this product, I can sell everywhere.
5 supermarkets have so far been interested in Gemechu's golden bottles. He sold around 2,000 within his first month.
Because it's a new product and we want to experience this kind of things. We want to have it in our supermarket.
Tej isn't exactly a new product. Fermented honey has been around for more than 2,000 years. Royals used to enjoy it from a beaker-shaped bottle called berele. Its long neck is designed for drinkers to sip slowly, avoiding quick intoxication.
It is better to drink with berele. If you drink with a glass, you may go home early. Most of the time we drink tej with berele and not a glass.
Though not everyone prefers to stick with tradition.
So I love it to drink it. I don't care about the glass, only I want to know that the taste. That's why I choose this one.
And that's why Gemechu started selling tej in plastic bottles.
As you can see, the traditional place, they sell about 70 to 80 birr per 1 liter. And in my case, my product is 50, half liters. So that's enough for one customer. Then they can buy with 20 birr. It's cheaper.
20 birr is the equivalent of around $1. Tej typically takes 2 weeks to ferment and is mixed with gesho, a bittering agent. But Gemechu filters his tej, which clears bacteria and allegedly results in an unlimited shelf life.
Our restaurant is cultural, so we must keep the culture. But we can't say culture is not to be developed. Others are prepared in a modern way, and that's their choice. We'll never say that they've broken the rule.
The concept is so new that Gemechu refused to show us his factory.
Because it's most of the time, as you know, businessmen want to know some secret. Because they have no any idea, business idea, then they start, because they have a lot of money, they can start if you know that secret. So you have to keep the secret.
As anticipated, Gemechu isn't the only one to have recently started selling traditional tej in a modern way. Muluembet Gebeyehu gave up her government job in order to start Mulu Tej.
When I was married 20 years ago, my wedding ceremony, it is very nice touch. Everybody said, oh, your touch is very nice. It is my first time I am drinking, they are saying. That is why I developed that touch.
Unlike Gemechu, Mulumbet doesn't distribute to supermarkets.
No, I am not prepared for that. I am prepared for selling personally, for the consumers.
Business looks bright for both entrepreneurs. They intend to create a buzz about their beverage that creates a buzz by exporting to different regions in the future. Mahe Mutwa, CCTV.
Let's make a quick run through the currencies here for you. The interesting story here for us really is the rand. It did hit a 2-month high on the 24th of July, cracked the 10.50 to the dollar level, and of course it was 0.28% higher, stronger rather, on Friday. Fairly little change overall, but certainly a change in sentiment. Watch for momentum depending on what happens in the strike next week. Now, a quick reminder, John Kerry, the US Secretary of State, and Ban Ki-moon might be holding a press conference from Cairo sometime from now. If and when it does happen, you'll have it live at CCTV. But thank you very much for watching all the same. On the day when the Gaza conflict has claimed 800 people, that's it for this edition of Global Business. I'm Ramanyan. Thank you for watching.